if Sam was to spend the rest of his life living with another species of animal or another animal, a big group of them, you're in a big group of, it could be frogs, leopards, horses, flies, dogs, cats, rabbits, spiders, koalas,
Now,
ostrich, penguin.
Is this in the wild or is this in my house?
No, you're going to be placed in a nice sort of, enclosed agricultural
Cottage.
cottage.
But you're in their
and
habitat.
They're outside and they come in your house. They're allowed to come through your house, but they have little sleeping quarters outside. Food's catered for. You haven't got to eat them, so don't try and think about pigs because you can make bacon or whatever. You haven't got to worry about that. And you haven't got to worry about feeding the animal either. The animal's food is going to be cared for. You'll be sent packages. So what animal would you like to be spending the rest of your days with? And when you go to the shops, you have to go in the dead of night so you see no other humans. You self-checkout and you take one of them with you so they sort of come in the car, one of the animals. If they're too small to walk, they get in the trolley.
Dolphin.
Jesus.
Give me a dolphin. They're clever fuckers.
Logistically, that's quite a challenging.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Well, logistically, but I mean, you think about it. You can cater. You can create things. Imagine a dolphin on some wheels.
Dolphin on
wheels.
skateboard. I'm thinking of like a baby seat, but for a dolphin now in a car. Like what would a dolphin cast?
With a old shower on top that keeps
keeping it wet.
Dolphins are clever. They know what they're doing. They'll sort themselves out, and I'll just be along for the journey.
Sento?
I don't think I can beat that. Jesus, dolphins. I don't know. I think I'm going to incline myself for something a little bit more traditional.
Yeah. I mean, you'll be able to be a lot more tactile with it. You'll be able to have it on the sofa.
Don't give me a dolphin.
Can you not have a dolphin on your sofa then?
The dolphin's going to definitely have to be sat in a pool, surely. In the living room. I mean, this is fine. We can make a pool in the living room for your dolphin.
Kids, like pool toys.
If anyone's been to Centre Parks who's listening, you'll know that there's a section of the pool where you start indoors and then you go outdoors. This can be built for Sam. We can build a pool outdoors with an underground tunnel, full of water, where the dolphins can come through and then pop up the other side inside the utility room or something, and then waddle through the house or whatever. But what are you saying, Sento?
That's it. That's the architect for you. Very good, mate.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know, something more, a little bit more manageable. I was between either dogs or rabbits. Rabbits because they're adorable. If you're gonna have a lot, I mean,
a lot of rabbits,
adorable.
yeah,
like
50.
A lot of rabbits,
yeah.
But then dogs, come on.
What dog though? Or a mixture. You can either choose one or a mixture, and the mixture is like you can't choose the mixture. It's just a random mixture.
A good old friend. Like my good old friend Collie. Truk.
Colin. Who's Colin?
Yeah. Collie. Bruce Collie. Truk.
Oh, Truk, yeah.
Yeah.
Dog.
Remember one? I've also posted a couple of pictures on Twitter a couple of times.
Yes.
Which he sadly passed away in 1 month ago. But well, such is life.
Well, welcome to episode 8 of the Pixel Players podcast. Hosted by myself, Fevan over NFT, or George, obviously.
Sento or Ratpinat _
Sam or Skipper NFT on Twitter.
Yes, and this episode is slightly different. We always plan for the podcasts to kind of straddle between football and obviously where our project lies in the sort of NFT Web3 crypto sphere. And this, I guess, we've struggled to fit them both in because there's so much football going on at the moment. We can't shoehorn it in anywhere. But two, obviously we're quite busy. But this is the start of our discussions around things crypto, NFT, and Web3, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. A little bit of insight for all of you. Easy to understand. Easy for all the people.
Yeah, digestible, hopefully.
Yeah.
So this first
digestible.
episode, we're basically going to introduce you all to, things about NFTs, crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum. Sam, we've all got some things prepared basically to say, to inform you a little bit more about this world that is kind of, for some people, I guess, sprung up out of nowhere, and that brings a lot of terms and words with it that are seemingly quite confusing. For example, GM, which just simply means good morning, and is used as a greeting, universally now. But before we dive into all of that, quick skim along the football, because we can't get away from it. So last night, just quickly, we had the Champions League conclusion. Real Madrid battered Celtic, Chelsea won against Dynamo Zagreb, and Liverpool beat Napoli, didn't they?
Yeah.
It's a shock.
Spurs
It wasn't really a game for much.
No.
We were expecting completely the opposite, though, on the last podcast. We did chat about this. Yeah.
We were. So does that give Klopp a little bit of security? Who knows? We'll see. If they lose,
we were giving him 3 games, and it was getting close.
Yeah. If they lose against Spurs this weekend, are they really in that much better of a position?
Yeah.
Or is it a facade?
Difficult to say.
Interesting. But yeah, Champions League is concluded. All of the teams who are going to be through are through. The ones dropping into the Europa League will be dropping. And tonight we're recording this at 10 to 8 on a Thursday, so the Europa League games are underway or kicking off, but we're not that fussed about those, so we won't really mention. But what we will mention is Gerard Piqué, Sento.
Yeah, apparently Gerard Piqué is going to retire after this weekend, after his last game. I was definitely not expecting this at all. I mean, I could understand him if he wanted to retire, but at the end of the season, halfway through the season is kind of weird, out of the blue too. I don't know.
He must be like an international legend for you. I mean, I'd liken him to England's John Terry, more successful. But
there's kind of a bit of a mixed feeling about him, because he's a great player, but he's also a bit of an independentist. He's from Catalonia.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of mixed feelings around him.
Politics.
That's the reason he stopped playing for Spain too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, other than the football, I guess where do we start with this NFT, crypto, and Web3 based conversation? I think maybe we should start on going through all of our stories on where we maybe started with the space ourselves. So for me and Sento, it might be a sort of similar time period, I should think, when we were getting our hands dirty. But I guess, Sam, you could maybe start by telling us where you got started with your journey in this space.
Well, so I mean, go back to 2017. Bitcoin was pumping. Didn't have a clue what it was. Throw some money in it, lose it all, and then you start learning about it. that sort of simmered on the mind.
The true gambler. Yeah.
That sort of simmered on the mind for a few years, and then come 2020, you still remember it being there. I sort of saw it popping about, looking at the markets and everything, looking where to put some money, and Bitcoin pops up. And that's when the sort of deep dive took place, I'd say, of learning what it really was, learning what Web3 is.
So around 2020, would you say? Or?
Around 2020, late 2020.
Okay, so after the crypto crash, after the COVID had hit, and
November
it started
2020.
to pick up again.
That's when I first started buying, and that's when I first started doing my deeper learning. And obviously, Bitcoin is the headline. Bitcoin is the tagline, and you try and learn what Bitcoin is, what it does, how it works, how it can benefit day-to-day lives. And I think that's the most fascinating thing about it is I always felt throughout, the more I learned, the more I could feel it's got a use case in the real world, and the more money I wanted to pump in, which is a bit of a spiral with its volatility. But I think everyone who sort of understands it is in the same sort of boat of, this can be used in so many different ways. Why isn't it already?
Definitely.
And I mean, I think there's millions of people out there who are building on it, and you know, I can't see it ever going down to zero.
No.
I mean, the technology.
Or as some people say, the tulip bubble burst. You know, when the tulips were what everyone was trading with in Holland, that bubble burst, and then the web when the internet came around, that did burst, but obviously came back with a bit of a vengeance, didn't it? A lot of people sit there and think that the crypto bubble will burst.
I personally don't believe so.
There's always people that believes that about everything. Whenever everything, let's say, good or interesting pops up, there's always a group of people that thinks, "Oh, that's going to burst."
Yeah.
And sometimes they're right. I mean, sometimes they're right. But I don't believe it in this case. Like, the technology behind is amazing. Maybe it's not perfect right now, but it's just going to be getting better and better with time.
Exactly.
And so all the uses.
You look at the internet. You compare it to the internet. I mean, in 2000, like George just said, it pumped, and then there was a bubble. There was a .com bubble in around 2000, and now, I mean, it's day-to-day life. Amazon's one of the biggest companies in the world. Probably a bad time to be speaking about Amazon, where their stock price just dropping 20%. But they bounce back, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're still used in day-to-day.
Yeah, but I mean, little by little, it's getting even more and more known, and more used and accepted everywhere. If you think about it, 5 years ago, no one knew about cryptocurrencies at all.
Yeah.
Not even NFTs. I mean, that wasn't even a thing. So, but for example, in my case, I know Bitcoin since, like, I don't know, like early 2010s. I remember a friend of mine told me, and he said, "Oh, I found this. It's really cool. Blah 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 blah." It was 15 cents each Bitcoin. I remember, and we were thinking of like chucking in like 10, 20 quid, just buying a bit of Bitcoin. But then, obviously, like, no one really knew what was back then. You could use it for anything. There was no much information. So I was a bit skeptical. We didn't buy into it in the end, and now I really do regret it, to be honest.
Yeah.
15 cents of Bitcoin.
Yeah, it was something that growing up, I mean, on the Xbox days with George in high school, it'd be something you would hear, you would know existed, but you wouldn't really have a use case for it. The only use case that we would feel would have been for drug money.
Literally.
I mean,
It felt dodgy.
Yeah, it did. It felt unofficial, which it was.
Literally.
Yeah.
I
but
mean,
then at the same time, I mean, we're in a world where if we use cash in the real world, it feels dodgy to a certain extent. If you go to the bank and withdraw £5,000 from a bank, it's like, why are you doing that? What are you using that for? The only sort of thing you can think you use it for is illicit funds.
Yeah, and there's a book called like Homo Sapiens, and I can't remember who it's by, but it talks about how humans had to adopt to the first time we were saying that these little circles of metal in your hand had a monetary value, and you would trade them for things. There was a massive psychological jump between, actually swapping a cow for a sheep or pieces of metal in your hand.
That doesn't sound really.
But that's
worth it. A cow for a sheep.
I think, but I think there's an economic model called the coincidence of wants, and it's basically, if I've got a cow and you've got a sheep, and I want to trade my cow for your sheep, you might not want a cow. So, but I want your sheep. So all money is
It's
So that
fungible.
you kill him and then you take his shit and that's it.
But money's that middleman where I don't want my cow, so I'm going to get rid of my cow and I'm going to have an IOU,
Yeah.
and that IOU is going to be an agreement that we both have that this IOU is worth X amount of money, and then I can give that to you,
Yeah.
and we can trade it.
It's quite a good way to actually, that's a good platform to just say, the sheep and the cow are good examples of non-fungible tokens. They are not fungible. They're not the same. They're not interchangeable. They're not mutual. They're very different. The money is fungible. My £1 coin in my pocket is exactly the same as Sam's £1 coin in his pocket.
Sure.
My sheep is different to Sam's cow. Yeah. So, Sento, where did you start with your crypto journey? I know you said that you first heard about it in 2010, but when would you say you started to get your fingers a little bit twitchy on the phone screen or the computer mouse?
I think it should be pretty much at the same time as you.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I was thinking for a while, and I decided it without even speaking with you. I remember, and I can't remember if you mentioned it, and I said, "Oh yeah," I was thinking exactly the same thing, or the other way around. But wasn't it like around November 2016?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
If I'm not
Definitely.
mistaken.
2016, I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was either October or November.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, around this time, more or less. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember Bitcoin was pumping, Litecoin was pumping. I didn't really know much about it still. I did know about it because I did research about it before buying into it, but still I knew nothing. And I decided to buy Bitcoin in the first. I think at first I did the literal thing that every newcomer does at some point, or most of us have done or did. The thing that you basically maybe buy 100 quid on Bitcoin, and literally 1 hour later you decide to sell it all, and then buy Litecoin with it.
Yeah. So I actually think
I'm probably losing money, obviously, because you're
on leverage as well.
Yeah.
5 times leverage.
Yeah, literally.
I think just after looking, I think the date we actually were doing it, Sensor, was November 2017.
Yeah, I was thinking
that was the crypto pump in December 2017, November 2017, and then it dumped massively in January 2018, February 2018. So yeah, for me it was pretty much the exact same. Me and Sento were at university together in our flat. We had a third party, probably no need to say their name. With a third party, having a good time. Just I don't know where we initially saw it and started to decide. It might have been, maybe Sam was talking about it as well. Who knows? But we got into it, chucked some money into it. Stuff started pumping. We started making money, and it was just a bit of sort of a funny time. Like Sento would come into my room, and I'd go into his room sort of at 10-minute increments because we'd be showing, "Oh, look how much it's gone up! Look at it, it's going up!" And, it was exciting. It was adrenaline rush, and we'd stand around in the evening.
We hyped each other up.
Yeah, we'd be down the pub in the evening, wouldn't we? And we'd sat there chatting about it. But after it all sort of fell apart and we lost our money in sort of January, February, I'd say I didn't really get back into it until 2020, 2021, so late 2020, early 2021. Yeah, late 2020 or mid 2020, something like that. But that's when I started getting back into it, I'd say.
Yeah, for me, I started trading like 5 or 6 months before that. I tried trading for like a couple months, like full on trading.
Yeah.
And I did do a bit of money, but it was so much sacrifice, it was all the time checking like being constant, even at night, mate. I'll set alarms during the night so I could wake up and check it out. Yeah, I mean, I did do good money. You know, it was paying back, but not worth it. After 2 months, I said, "Fuck this."
Yeah.
And stuff.
Yeah. And for me, it was, the first time I ever heard about crypto was probably around 2011, 2012, when I was probably in school, 14. I think I probably was, can't do the maths right now. 14, probably in school. And I used to watch this YouTuber who was a skateboarder in North Carolina. And he was talking about Bitcoin in his video, and he was saying how, I might put some money into it. I guess at that age, your brain isn't quite, calibrated towards thinking, why is this 23-year-old or whatever he was thinking about putting some money into Bitcoin, digital currency? I think, for us, it just looked like, a stock or something that we didn't really know where, the use case was, or, where it was sort of having an effect, beyond the computer screen. Sort of thing.
Challenge is when you're that age as well is where does the money come from?
Yeah.
How do you put it in there? Because you've got to go through an exchange where you're anti-money laundering verified, where you've got to be over 18 as well. So it's it's something to acknowledge, but you most of the time just watch pass by when you're younger. So
I guess what we'll discuss today is the two main cryptos or cryptocurrencies, which is Ether or Ethereum, and Bitcoin. And I think Sam's going to discuss stable coins briefly as well. But I guess we'll start with Bitcoin, because I guess that's the one that we first all kind of came across. So I don't know, does Sam want to start on the Bitcoin?
Yeah, I'll start on the Bitcoin.
Just explain to us what it is.
So essentially Bitcoin, I mean, one of the most amazing things of 2022, I'd say, is if you ask anyone what the internet is, a lot of people don't know. And I mean, I think we'll still see that in the future with regards to Bitcoin. People may not know what it is, and that's why it's important to sort of try and understand it a bit more. But Bitcoin is essentially a ledger where it's a public ledger where everyone can view the transactions, but not everyone can process the transactions. So you can only process the transaction if you own the Bitcoin, your share of the Bitcoin. And this public ledger is verified by independent people across the world, and anyone can verify transactions. And those are called miners. These miners basically search for new blocks of code that are being issued on the Bitcoin blockchain, and they get rewarded. They get an incentive to mine. And what the mining does is it verifies transactions and increases security. And the freedom and the ability for anyone to mine Bitcoin around the world gives it almost immeasurable security, because it's fully visible and anyone can do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges in cryptocurrency is the blockchain trilemma. And it's trying to create a cryptocurrency that's scalable. So a cryptocurrency that can do thousands and thousands of transactions per second, whilst also being very secure. So it can't be hacked. It has to have independent verification somehow, and it has to be decentralized. So it can't be controlled by a single entity, because if that entity gets hacked or gets controlled, then so does the cryptocurrency. And that's a big problem with other cryptocurrencies. But Bitcoin being the main one, was the original one as well.
Yeah. And when you're saying ledger, how would you describe to people the word ledger?
A ledger is just basically a list of transactions.
Yeah.
So as an accountant, sort of, the term ledger comes naturally, but But the ledger is basically, if I give George £10, that's just a document of me giving you £10. And all that Bitcoin's miners are doing are verifying that I've given you that £10.
And
They're
that's
all
basically the blockchain.
they're putting
It's
a
like
tick
a
next to it.
big list, big database of all
Yeah.
the transactions, where it came from, where it went, the amount.
Yeah.
And then we're saying that only George is able to then pass that Bitcoin on elsewhere.
Yeah.
Because he holds the private key. And all of this gets verified by miners. And as an incentive to mine, a reward gets given out every 10 minutes.
So what reward would that be?
Well, I'm not sure what the reward is, but the reward is in Bitcoin. It's a form of Bitcoin.
So it's a Bitcoin. So a Bitcoin can also be described then as a currency, would you say?
It is a currency. It's a cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
That's where the term comes from. I mean, if you were to give me £10, I'd say thank you. If you were to give me 10 Bitcoin, I may say,
You'd
why
probably do a
you...
lot more than say thank you.
I may say,
What though, mate?
What would you do for 10 Bitcoin? What would you do
I'd
for 10
run off.
Bitcoin?
But some people may say, why have you given me that? I can't do anything with it. Some people would say you can do a lot with it. But then the same thing, you could give me 10 Turkish lira. It's the same thing.
And that's a funny point, isn't it? You could probably go around the world right now and say to a lot of people, I'll either give you $1,000 or £1,000 or 10 Bitcoin. Or would you rather have? And a lot of people would choose the $1,000.
Probably. Yeah. I mean,
Maybe
most
not
of the
so
people
much
probably
now.
don't know.
I think the hype.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have started to
yeah.
catch on that one Bitcoin does have quite a significant monetary value.
Yeah, I'd say maybe if you go around Europe, yes, it would be difficult maybe. But maybe if you go to, I don't know, to maybe a less developed country,
Yeah.
That obviously cryptos are now big. Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, they will probably say yes.
Yeah. So essentially, Bitcoin is a decentralized currency that individuals can trade directly without a third party. So when you're talking in sort of money terms, Sento would have to go to a bank or use his banking app to send me money right now.
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin removes that third party and essentially allows Sento to become his own bank. And how, as Sam was explaining, it verifies this transaction using blockchain technology. And this is essentially sort of allowing multiple individuals or miners, as Sam was saying, to verify a transaction. So it's not governed by a specific person. That's essentially what makes it decentralized. So what you're seeing is a currency that isn't tethered to kind of the economy of a specific country. It's just a global currency. So it isn't. It will kind of allow you, if everyone was to adopt Bitcoin around the world, as El Salvador have done, you could go around on holiday using one currency. You would no longer have to go and change your currency. But Bitcoin is a lot more than that. People are saying it's hedging against inflation and things like that. So a lot of people are in Bitcoin for many different reasons, and that's what makes it, again, so interesting.
I think a lot of the problem is, as well, is because it's not pegged to a single economy. It's a very volatile asset. Now, there's two ways of looking at why it's volatile. I mean, you can say Bitcoin's volatile, but you can also say the pound is just very volatile. And it's the pound change in value, because one Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin. The only thing against that is obviously the pound is less volatile with the dollar. So everything else is staying relatively the same to an extent, but Bitcoin is the one that's fluctuating up and down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think the problem with it is that a lot of people see Bitcoin now as an investment asset.
Yes.
And at
more
the same
time, utility asset.
Yeah, and at the same time, I mean,
an alternative to gold.
An alternative to gold. When a lot of the time, I mean, it's just a currency. There are a lot of just currencies out there. You don't just buy Turkish lira as an investment opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, you do.
Unless you're a forex trader.
Yeah, exactly. You can, but the majority of people don't.
Yeah.
And I think that's the struggle with cryptocurrency at the moment, is that a lot of people have jumped on the hype train and have been like, "Oh, I'm buying this to try and make some money."
It's just easy because it's on your phone, so it's easy to access, easy to buy, easy to store. You know, all the information if you want about it, if it's going to do well, going to do bad, what do the experts say and all that. Again, Google, it's very easy to follow it.
Yeah, coming off of that, it's very easy to hack, which is the other problem, because there's no sort of centralized entity in between you and your money. It can be gone with a click of a fingers, and that there's an element of risk associated to that. But the reason that's the case, is because it theoretically should make transactions cheaper. Every time you're sending money out of your bank, every transaction you make, the banks skim off the top, and that's where the banks get their wealth from. With Bitcoin, there's no one doing that. Coinbase are, exchanges are. So you could argue the exchanges are operating as banks, but outside of the exchange, which you're able to do with wallets such as Coinbase Wallet, Trust Wallet, MetaMask with Ethereum. That's how you really get hold of your crypto and how you transact with it. But it's like George was saying, it's borderless. I could send £1 million worth of Bitcoin to China tomorrow.
Right now,
and the fees would be a lot cheaper than if I were to go through my bank.
Definitely cheaper.
Yeah. So how would someone keep their Bitcoin safe?
A ledger, to put it simply, a ledger or a trezor. So what a ledger is, it's basically a USB device. Which has your passcode. It's not a USB, but it has your passcode attached to it, and it connects to your wallet, and it protects your private key, which is your private signature, and enables you to make the transactions. And it can't do that without your authorization, which is usually via a code you set. And without that, anyone in any location can access your wallet if they hack your computer, get access to your phone, etc.
Yeah. And so Bitcoin as well, which we haven't mentioned, was made by, we don't know, Satoshi Nakamoto, who is an unknown individual. Whoever they are, they're stinking rich.
If they're alive.
And
if they're not a government.
Which
no, obviously not.
No one knows. Maybe one day we'll find out.
They'd already have all the claws on it if that was the case.
Yeah.
all that sweet tax money.
But where I guess Ethereum comes in is when Bitcoin was made and went live in 2010, it was built using blockchain technology, which we have slightly touched upon. Blockchain technology was essentially a byproduct of Satoshi Nakamoto's Bitcoin. And blockchain technology was developed by combining pre-established technologies such as cryptography, proof of work, and decentralized networks. This created a system that could reach conclusions and make decisions without a central authority. So in comes Ethereum after that, but I guess maybe Sento, do you want to touch on blockchain technology a bit? Because I think you've got a lot about Ethereum, haven't you, we want to talk about. So maybe this is where you come in.
What is it? You want me to jump into Ethereum then?
So
blockchain technology?
So blockchain technology was essentially a byproduct of Bitcoin. Yeah. And it was what allowed Vitalik Buterin, the founder of Ethereum, to build Ethereum. So Ethereum is also built using blockchain technology.
Which a little fun side note about that. If I'm not mistaken, Vitalik started it because he was a World of Warcraft player. If I'm not mistaken, he was saying yes, right? It was him, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a World Cup, and I think his objects on the game got stolen or something like that, and he got very pissed off, and he tried to look for a way to maintain, like, basically make that impossible, right? And that's when Ethereum pops up. I mean, Ethereum is based on, let's say, smart contracts, which, if I'm not mistaken, you, George, will explain better what NFT is. And that's a smart contract, well, way more complex smart contract than what the ETH token is, because it's also a smart contract.
Yeah.
But that's when it pops up. And, well, basically, it is the second most important cryptocurrency out there, after Bitcoin.
Well, some would argue the first. Some would argue the most important.
For me, I would argue the most important, because, I mean, you could even use it the same way you use Bitcoin as transaction, just for, transactions, monetary transactions. But apart from that, it has so many more uses, like NFTs, and that's just going to keep expanding. Smart contracts, I think they're going to revolutionize the internet even more than just cryptos in itself.
Yeah.
I think that's when the good stuff starts. Let's leave it at that.
The opportunities are endless.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and up until recently, we had the first version of Ethereum. We could call it Ethereum 1.0, because the new version that just came around the 15th of September, it's called Ethereum 2.0. Although it was divided into actually two versions. One was Paris and the other one was London, if I'm not mistaken. Two different updates. That created Ethereum 2.0. And, well, the reason for this update was mainly focused on the energy consumption that mining those blocks of Ethereum costed. Like, basically, the system that Ethereum used before, it was proof of work, which it could pretty much be considered to be like a race.
Yeah.
To see who mines that block first, so who processes that block of transactions first. It's basically a race of different miners putting up their processing power, try and process that first, because whoever gets it first gets the reward of mining that block.
So there's a lot of wasted energy with it.
Obviously.
So if there's one person mining and only one person's verifying the transaction, and one person getting the reward. But if 1,000 people are mining, then one person's still only getting the reward, but 999 others are
it's
wasting
a complete
their energy.
waste. Complete waste of processing power. Because
some would argue that the waste of processing power is what's sacrificed in order to ensure security. So it makes it more secure, which is why there are arguments about Ethereum's merge.
There's also arguments of why that also makes it a little bit insecure compared to the new system that Ethereum implemented, which is proof of stake.
Yeah.
Which basically, in the way this differs to proof of work, is that this no longer becomes a race of different miners trying to mine a block and get the reward first. But actually, there's an algorithm behind that allocates the miner the blocks for themselves to mine. And the way this is done is by the miners putting a stake on it. So basically, with their own coins, they will be putting a stake on it. Let's say like a bid. It could be considered a bid for the block. And also the algorithm will take into account how many, like for how long have you been validating blocks, or basically your experience in it. And if you are very experienced in mining the blocks, which you don't have to do anything, just your processing does, but your history still goes into it. And your stake is one of the highest one, probably the algorithm will allocate the block to you. And if you manage to mine the block, you'll get that stake back plus the reward of mining the block. So basically, how this does is it gets rid of all those, how you said, like what you said, 999 miners trying to mine that block. That it's a complete waste of processing power, because that's just allocated to that person mindset, pool or group of persons, and that's it. I mean, the power is not wasted. Well, you could fail to mine the block, in which case you could also lose your stake. But that also, I mean, it could happen to anyone. That's it. That's what it happens. And yeah, well, basically, this gets rid of, they estimate 99.95 fucking hell %. Yes, I couldn't get it out. Jesus, that took me effort, huh?
Second language, folks.
Yes, 99.95. There we go. That was a riddle for me. Percent of the power consumption out of the process. I mean, out of the mining. So basically, before they were estimating that mining Ethereum was comparable to the total consumption of energy of Finland. So that will drop 99% now. So that's a very, let's say, very
With
good
Ethereum.
Improvement over there with Ethereum 2.0. Yes.
Yeah, not Bitcoin. Bitcoin is still arguably wasting the energy, but at the same time, the argument is around security. And I mean, the incentive for proof of stake is you've locked away X amount of Ethereum. Your incentive is not to devalue the currency, because otherwise you're spending your own money to turn it to zero.
Yeah. Well, there's now an argument that says that, I mean, this is actually more secure than proof of work. That's what Bitcoin does.
Yeah.
Because basically before because it was a race, if you could try and control, let's say, a lot of computers, a lot of processing power, and dominate
51%.
most of the processing of blocks, you could actually try and alter them. So that's obviously trying to get that processing power is, well, pretty much impossible.
It's impossible now, right?
I mean, it is possible, maybe with a virus that infects many computers, and makes them mine without the people really realizing. A lot of people do it like that, actually do that.
But one of the
and
problems,
also over here is you lose the stake. If you try and do something wrong or something malicious to the blockchain, you use the stake. So what's the point?
Yeah.
There's no race to, so you cannot control it either, because the algorithm decides who's going to process that block,
And also the problem with proof of work at the moment is people would have warehouses full of computer processors which are trying to mine Bitcoin, trying to race to get that reward. And some were profitable, but I think one of the biggest problem at the moment is energy prices soaring. These warehouses full of computers which are running 24/7, and it's high processing. Fans trying to keep it cool.
There's also big farms of Ethereum, big mines of Ethereum too. Well, were until 2.0. That's what they were trying to get rid of, right?
And they're not needed anymore, because you just stake your own coins and then you get randomly chosen. But at the moment, for Bitcoin warehouses and businesses, the soaring energy prices are making it very difficult for them to make money.
True. Yeah, right now with these energy prices, electricity prices, it's been very, very difficult. I mean, it's pretty much not profitable, even depending on which country you are in.
Yeah.
Like in Spain, I think in Spain it's not profitable anymore.
It's too hot.
Yeah, literally too hot.
Yeah. So what Ethereum does then? Ethereum is essentially using the blockchain technology, just like Bitcoin, but it allows you to build smart contracts, which offers a hell of a lot of opportunity. But before we dive a bit more into what smart contracts can be seen as, maybe just to sort of counteract or contrast the volatility aspect of Bitcoin and Ethereum, Sam could run us past stablecoins.
Yes, so stablecoins are at the moment, I believe the only stable coins that exist are all tethered to the US dollar. So
Dollar.
the dollar bills, y'all. So what a stable coin effectively is it's on the blockchain. Most of the time it's on the Ethereum blockchain, and it's just a separate token. And it effectively has its intention to solely keep the price as $1. So 1 US tether, for example, will equal $1. 500,000 US tethers will equal 500,000 US dollars. And what that creates is a bit of a safe haven to an extent for cryptocurrency users. You can easily transfer your Ethereum to US dollar, I guess, US tether.
Or convert it. Yeah.
You can convert it at the click of a button, and it makes it a lot easier to connect your dollar value and your crypto value. Because if you want to reduce your exposure in cryptocurrency and you want to transfer it all to dollars, you would most of the time transfer it to US tether to stop it going up and down, and then you would transfer it out into real dollars if you wanted.
Yeah.
And it sort of acts as a stable gateway between the two. It's not actual dollars, but it keeps its value. And the way it's supposed to work is you buy, or the back end of Tether is you buy 1 tether for $1, and then with that $1, I believe they invest it in numerous different investment activities, and try and uphold its value of $1. And a lot of time we've seen a lot of different cryptocurrencies fail.
Specifically stable coin ones recently.
Yeah.
Specifically stable coin ones where they've tried to keep their value. And there's 2 different types of stable coin. They're both obviously supposed to keep $1, but one of them is a centralized stable coin where the back end of that stable coin is an organization actively investing and trying to keep its value. And those are the likes of US Tether, USD coin. And the other side of the spectrum is algorithmic stable coins. And what they're supposed to be stable coins which are not centralized at all. So they've got no central organization behind them that's investing the money, and it's supposed to automatically invest the funds in different areas and different cryptocurrencies, different investment activities, and it's supposed to uphold its $1 value that way. And what we very much struggle with is the algorithmic stablecoin. No one has mastered the algorithmic stablecoin code yet. No one can make it foolproof. The latest example is Luna.
Well, that was a big crash.
Yeah, so they tried to create an algorithmic stablecoin, and they wanted to keep its $1 value by buying Bitcoin. And what happened was Bitcoin had a gigantic volatility fall, and it ended up being worth less than $1.
Ended in tears.
When your stablecoin's worth less than $1, it causes a bit of chaos. Everyone tries to sell because they don't want it to go any lower, which causes very much more volatility in the stablecoin. And it no longer becomes a stablecoin. And once a stablecoin loses its $1 value, it loses its peg, because it's supposed to be pegged to the dollar. No one uses it. Why would you use a stablecoin that's not stable? So one of the biggest challenges at the moment is trying to get an algorithmic stablecoin, because it means no one's in control of your funds. We want it decentralized, but it seems to be quite the challenge at the moment.
Yeah. So, Sento, any more on Ethereum before we jump into NFTs? Or
Well, I mean, there's Ethereum is just so big, right?
Yeah.
I think the basics have already explained. We've already explained how it works with the blockchain, how it changed from proof of work to proof of stake, how that affects to the energy consumption and security. This will also affect the gas prices, the famous gas prices for Ethereum.
So what about
That's fascinating.
Ether and Ethereum? Could be said as two different things, but
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean,
we all just call it Ethereum anyway.
Yeah, just for easiness. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I just tend to call it Ethereum, to be honest, by default.
the currency.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we're looking at NFTs, and specifically NFTs that were built on the Ethereum blockchain, you're looking at sort of starting around 2017. You could go 2016, but we'll start around CryptoPunks. So CryptoPunks, obviously the one that everyone knows and a lot of people do love. They came around in June 2017. So when they came, I can't actually recall hearing about them. I first heard about CryptoPunks probably in 2020. But yeah, so this was a movement where people started to suddenly say that these digital assets or JPEGs had a significant monetary value, which a lot of people ridiculed and laughed at. It created quite a stir across the world, actually. I think, NFTs were the basis of conversation for a few years and to some extent still are. But since obviously it's all exploded, in 2020 and 2021, CryptoPunks and Bored Apes, which came along in 2020, I believe, have sort of become, household names now. So Bored Ape Yacht Club was a project which started, I believe, in May 2020. And we'll just kind of refer to CryptoPunks and Bored Apes as they are the two largest NFT projects at the moment. So what we saw after that, or since then, since it's all blown up and these, hundreds of millions have poured into the NFT market, sort of in the same space of 12 months, we've seen companies like Starbucks, Adidas, Lacoste, and now Meta or Facebook making strides towards using NFTs to drive into the Web3 space. Even today, November the 3rd, we saw news that Instagram are looking to become an NFT marketplace, or at least host an NFT marketplace of their own, so that people can buy and sell JPEGs. But you might be asking what NFTs are, and we did elicit in the start of the sort of conversation that they are non-fungible tokens, as in contrast or in comparison to a fungible token, such as a pound coin or a dollar note, where my dollar note is the exact same as yours, vice versa. Non-fungible tokens could be compared to like cars. So even if me and Sam bought the exact same Range Rover, they are likely to have discrepancies even off the production line. So they are non-fungible. They might have a slightly different millimeter gap in the panels, or the placement of the wheel might be slightly out by a couple of millimeters. There's bound to be discrepancies.
And they've both got independent IMEI numbers, or I can't remember what they call it.
VM,
chassis numbers. Chassis numbers are completely different.
I always love the real estate example, where you can have a plot of land with your own little house.
Yeah.
I can buy a plot of land as big as yours, same dimensions, same type of soil, same everything, rocks, like type of rocks, type of trees, type of plants. I hire an architect to build a house exactly like yours, but it will never be the same house as yours. If you go maybe to the city hall and then ask for the papers for both houses, it will never be the same. It will never have the same reference number. It will never have the same owner. It will never have anything, it would be the smart contract, right?
Yeah.
The house would be the JPEG, the thing itself, and then the smart contract would be
the deeds or the records of who's owned it, and etc. etc. Yeah. So the thing with NFTs, I guess, what we've seen at the moment is NFTs being represented or explored through JPEGs. And a lot of the question or debate has been around, how do these JPEGs how are they objects? But a lot of people are complaining about, it's nothing. You can't touch it, you can't hold it. These JPEGs mean nothing, and therefore the sort of money that's attached to them is ridiculous. It's a Ponzi scheme. The bubble's going to burst, etc., etc. But I think a lot of it is about exactly what we were talking about with Bitcoin. It's psychological. I think it's how, it's how we choose to see digital assets in it, for example. So if we look at it in the sense that, it's how we choose our interests in day-to-day life. So Sam chooses to be interested in football. He chooses to allow that to represent him slightly in terms of his personality.
I was born this way, baby.
Exactly. The sort of clothes we wear, the sort of, the shoes we choose to put on our feet, the trainers we want to wear, the cars we drive, and the homes we live in with the furniture we buy. For those sort of that invest time into this choice of all those things I've just mentioned, it can represent, a moment or a part of you or the way you see the world. And that's how we kind of approach assets. We buy nice things, or we buy things because we think they might reflect a certain way we feel, or they make us feel a certain way, or we might just like them for a particular reason, as we said, for cars, etc. The capacity for certain objects to capture a moment in time. So, for example, if you got into a classic Volkswagen Beetle, it would take you back to an era where, perhaps you weren't born around, but an era that, is passed us by. It's what the object represents. And if you dig through your desk drawers, wherever you are listening to this at home, or your bedside tables, you'll probably find an old mobile phone. And if you hold it in your hands for less than a minute, you'll probably get some memories start pouring back. And that's that associative part of your brain starting to send memories back, what it reminds you of, the phone, or whatever it might remind you of certain things. And the thing is that with NFTs, that we're going to a lot of psychological kind of barriers to overcome here, into understanding that these digital assets aren't just nothing. And when this tail of ownership moves over to the digital world, which in some cases it already has, buying packs on FIFA Ultimate Team if you played FIFA, or for now, like people buying skins on Fortnite, or even online movies, people begin to take an interest in digital ownership. The moments it can capture and the robustness of its condition, because it's online, it's stored digitally, essentially once created, it's immortal. And that sort of, it's family heirloom shit, really. The fact that you can make something that's immortal and it can be passed down, and the smart contract can show you who's owned it, for how long, when they owned it. It's family heirloom shit. It's like a Rolex. So we've already seen how this can also translate to community as well, with NFTs and projects like Bored Ape Yacht Club currently trending. Right now, as I'm speaking, November 3rd, the war in Ukraine and whatever, and this massive economic collapse in the UK. Right now, Bored Ape Yacht Club are still trending for around £90,000 for a JPEG. So their community hasn't wavered even throughout these turbulent times. Now, on top of digital ownership, rendering these objects essentially immortal, you won't break it, you won't drop it down the toilet, you won't lose it when you're moving out, or on top of that, the Ethereum blockchain, a decentralized open source blockchain, is what the NFT is stored on. And like we said, you can see who's owned it, for when they owned it, when they bought it, and for how long. And Ether is the native currency for Ethereum, and cryptocurrency. And what Ethereum is essentially a big box of digital Lego bricks. The smart contracts are frameworks in which these Lego bricks can be implemented. So instead of Lego builders, computer developers and software developers are capable of coding their own unique smart contracts, allowing endless opportunity, just like endless opportunity presented by a big box of Lego. Developers and coders can write smart contracts which allow NFTs to perform different tasks and carry out different instructions. They can be coded to change over time, just like digital artworks of Daniel Arsham, or game pieces such as NFTs representing football clubs in Footium. There could be membership tokens into clubs such as Sportshead Original Team or Shop, where you collectively support underrepresented athletes and sports stars. Or they could be smaller fragments to a larger game, such as Football Critter, where multiple NFTs form a team to compete in weekly challenges. Or finally, they could just be digital artworks of art that collectors enjoy collecting. We are very early, and humans have chosen, early in the NFT space and crypto space, I should sort of add context to that. And, humans have chosen the first use cases of NFTs to be digital apes and JPEGs. But trust us when we say we haven't seen probably 1% or even 0.1% of the total use cases Ethereum and smart contracts will be beneficial for. And when talking about NFTs in the game sense, like I just mentioned, yesterday, 2nd November, Silly Tuna on Twitter, if you go on Twitter at Silly Tuna, did quite a good thread based around digital ownership on blockchain versus online products such as Fortnite skins. So when talking about it in a game context, and Silly Tuna was saying things like, the ownership is completely independent from the store you bought it from. So in terms of NFTs, it's not the same as going into a game store and buying a game. This NFT can be sort of used across platforms, just like a physical product, like a shirt. You can wear that when you want. There's no rules behind it.
Well, you could explain in the terms of Fortnite, for example, you could buy a skin right now. If you buy a skin of Fortnite, it stays on Fortnite databases on your account. If the company decides to shut the servers for the game because maybe it's not popular in the future or whatever, or maybe it's not profitable for them anymore or whatever, you will lose that content because you don't really own it. It's on that company's databases. Wow, if that was an NFT, that would be on your own wallet and no one could take it out.
It's kind of like a real truthful ownership, isn't it? When you own the NFT, you own it. You know the smart contract is well attached to it, like we said. You can see all the details about it. But what I like about NFTs as well, and what Silly Tuna was saying, is they open up so many opportunities for things, like housing deeds or housing documents when you're buying a house, medical records, licenses for car, and anything like that, anything document based, where you need a record. It needs to be accessible across platforms by people across the world for different reasons or whatever. It can be encrypted and protected and safe. There's so many use cases. But what I also like, what Silly Tune talks about, is the provable scarcity. So we shouldn't have to trust that a given object or item is rare. So for example, that rare Gucci coat that Sam's wearing, that there is apparently only 5,000 of. Does he really know there's only 5,000? We don't know. But with NFTs, you can see exactly what the supply is. The NFTs allow issuance rules to be transparent. They remove the need for trust issuers or issues, and thus providing absolute confidence in the issuance data and the scarcity data. So, for example, when you're on your Bored Apes now, and you can see, you've got a 0.01%, rare ape because of what he's wearing. That's what the NFT also allows. It allows you to see the precise scarcity kind of data, which you don't get with other things like classic cars or vintage watches, things like that people collect on a day-to-day basis today, and have to have a lot of background documentation to go along with it. So classic cars is a great example. The amount of documentation people are after before they want to buy the car to prove, who bought it, what works it had done to it, who's owned it when, how many owners does it have. If all of that documentation in the future, it might, you might be buying cars and having your kind of V5 documents or car ownership documents in NFT form, because you can see exactly who's owned it for exactly how long, exactly what work's been carried out on the car, MOT failures, whatever. The use cases for NFTs or the smart contract opportunities presented by Ethereum is pretty vast. So although what we've discussed here is JPEGs and whatever, and maybe the game instance for the use for the NFTs, I think what we're going to see in the next 5 to 10 years is potentially unfathomable.
And also coming off the back of that, I think a great scenario I've heard is so obviously artwork is massive. Artwork can be sold for millions of pounds. Imagine buying a £2 million piece of art. Now, the only place that you will want to show that is in your home. Now, not many people can see that.
Yeah.
Not many people will come around your home and
you wouldn't want to photograph it in your home either, would you? If it was an expensive piece.
You wouldn't have a 2 million piece hanging around in the room, probably down in a safe or something.
Exactly. So a lot of the time, I mean, it makes it a bit difficult. And if you're showing people on your phone, look at what I've got at home, sort of thing. How do they know you own it?
Exactly.
So I mean, a great use case for NFTs as well are, you can have a digital museum where you own that,
Yeah,
But
you can
you can
prove
also-
ownership. Yeah,
But you can also print it on a T-shirt. You can. I mean, look at what Neymar's done.
yeah,
Neymar's got his Bored Ape Yacht Club all over his T-shirt. He put it on a cake.
Yeah.
He loves it. But thinking outside of the Bored Ape Yacht Club, just a wonderful piece of art. And an example is Fidenza, that's computer generated, algorithmic. That can just produce some beautiful art, and having that in your digital museum whilst also being able to print it and do other things with it.
Yeah. So I think a lot of the argument as well is people are very scared about the metaverse. They think, I don't want an ape as my profile picture. Why the hell would I want to do that? But people don't realize that we're already in the metaverse. People are already swiping left and right on Tinder to try and find, a life partner. And to find a life partner is a massive decision. And people are already making that decision on their phones. So to have an ape or an artwork as your profile picture as a representation of who you are, what you're interested in, is pretty minuscule compared to finding a potential husband or wife on your phone. And so I think it's just a case of time. People are going to eventually understand that we're on, the digital world is upon us. We're going to want things that represent who we are besides the profile picture.
And it could be so much more than that. It could be so much more something that represents you, or maybe a work from an artist that just wants to digitalize his work. So a lot of projects have a lot of utility behind those NFTs too.
Yes.
For example, Cryptomorris that has that mental health program where if you own a Mori, you can get some mental health
access to therapy. Access.
That's it. Access to therapy and other programs. So and there's way more.
And these are simple things to do. I mean, all you've got to do is create a Web3 internet page that just proves ownership. And just quickly on an explanation of what Web3 is. So Web1 is sort of read-only decentralized web pages such as Google, MSN, AOL, Yahoo, Internet Explorer a long time. And then Web1 obviously transitioned and it grew. And it became centralized with certain organizations, but allowed users to read and write. And those are things like Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. I mean, it allows users to post and create content, but it's still centralized.
And unfortunately, it's as Web 2 has kind of progressed, all of these things are owned by a very select few.
Yeah, they're owned by the billion-dollar corporations, and I mean that's worked. That's worked, but that's not always what you want to do. So the introduction into Web3 is there's no middleman, there's no central organization, it's decentralized. So it's purely you connecting with the other user.
We can definitely wait to see everything changing to a Web3 format, like having even a Web3 YouTube and stuff like that, where content creators, the videos will be NFTs or smart contracts of any type. You'll hold them. You can even sell it. Maybe a company comes around, hey, I want to buy this video from you. Okay,
because
I'll sell it.
Like we've said, I mean, the Web3 enables you to prove that you have this item or prove that you have this key. Yeah. So it is yourself. It acts as your key to navigate through. I mean, imagine a Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Snapchat. Well, Snapchat's mobile only, but imagine all of those which you've only got one login. That, to an extent, is where we're going with this.
Yeah.
You've only got one login because it's your private key that's associated, and
What's interesting as well, I guess, from an artist standpoint, whether you're a musician or whatever you are, NFTs is kind of looking to kind of, again, like we were saying, remove the middleman. So artists or musicians no longer need art galleries or record labels to start to kind of, I guess, shift their work or spread it across or sell it, however they want to sell it. And they can actually as well add royalties. So, for example, if Sento was to mint some watercolor paintings that he did, and add a 10% royalty to the sales, he would forever receive a 10% royalty on whatever sale took place on those artworks, which could be paying his family in 300 years' time. They could still be receiving royalties from Sento's artwork.
Yeah, I think that's a very big plus for artists specifically, because right now an artist, let's say you're I don't know, painter, you paint portraits, I don't know, whatever. And right now, okay, you paint this portrait, you sell it, and that's it. Maybe you sell it for 500 quid. Let's say you get that 500 quid, and you see no more money. Again, if that's resold, well, you know nothing about it.
Yeah.
But with this, an artist, apart from the initial sell, like you say, can get a little bit of royalties every single sell. So if that keeps moving around, at least the artist can benefit from it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, because artists, let's be honest, artists, it's a difficult career, because if you don't get yourself established out there, it's difficult to make money.
Yeah.
So with this, yeah, I think it's a very big plus.
And it's also how artists make money. Normally artists make money through, a gallery giving them the platform to make money. And so the gallery therefore will take a very large chunk, I don't know, 30%, something like that, of the profits made. So, this is what NFTs are doing. And like I was saying when I was trying to explain NFTs, NFTs or the Ethereum and Ethereum smart contracts. The Ethereum smart contract, as I was saying, is essentially a big box of Lego bricks. So Sento, as the developer, can choose to build many things with using this smart contract, and to publish it onto the blockchain. And so through that, we're seeing NFT projects make all sorts of different utilities and use cases for their artwork. So, for example, we've seen a lot of projects start building their own ecosystems with tokens that are yielded by NFTs through you holding them in your wallets. We've seen art drops where holders of NFTs will receive a free art drop of another NFT. We've seen games being built where your NFT represents certain aspects of games. So yeah, the sort of, again, the possibility for NFT projects or JPEGs or whatever the NFT you want to say at the moment to have kind of attached to it is endless. Like we say, you can go from one end of the spectrum to just a JPEG, a nice piece of art that you might like, or you can get to the other end of the spectrum where you've got a really highly kind of engineered smart contract that is performing all sorts of tasks almost passively. So very interesting.
Like the one we'll have. I'll have to focus on that in the future.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I guess that's
try and implement all the game ideas, all the utility.
Yeah. And so this kind of where we are, or where we've kind of arrived to right now in this podcast recording, is our entire background behind our interest in crypto and where we sort of first learned about it, what we know about it, what we think about it, how we see it, how we perceive it. And I guess we arrived at this point where, if you rewind quickly for me back to 2020, not only was I looking back into crypto, I started making pixel art. And I was selling that pixel art on Etsy as sort of prints. So, physical prints. I was sending physical prints around the world, sold to over sort of like, I think 15 countries around the world. And then Sam was basically telling me, you should get this art onto NFTs and onto the blockchain sort of thing. And that's where our project, Pixel Players, was born. So kind of migrated from this pixel art being sold around the world, kind of, based on football or retro football, to this kind of digital collectible. And that's where, I think when we initially came, I immediately, told Sento about this project. Me and Sam had kind of came up with or whatever. He was on board, obviously, with his skill set as a computer science graduate and a developer and whatever. Sam's got his skills in finance and also interest in business and basic crypto and all that stuff that we all have. I was the artist, so that's where Pixel Players came. Kind of all three of us brought our skills together, and I think when this Pixel Players kind of really got going, which was in kind of late summer of 2021, August, September kind of time, it was really ramping up, and at that point the space did feel really different to January 2022. In 2021, I guess the space felt a lot more positive. Artists felt like they could build projects that would be seen in a different light. I guess just posting your work on Instagram. But what quickly happened is it got saturated really fast. So I guess what Pixel Players did was we tried to sit down and come up with utilities for our NFTs, such as building a game, which we still would like to do. But we count of all these things that require hundreds, if not thousands, of hours of work that we couldn't do quite quick enough for the kind of the pace of the way the NFT market was evolving, and then it quickly fell off a cliff. So yeah, that's basically where we are now. I'm not sure whether we should continue talking in this episode, or maybe this is where episode 2 might kick off. I think. Otherwise, we could end up going on for hours. What do you think?
Yeah, this sounds like this could be led for episode 2, or part 2, episode 8. Is it episode 8 or 7?
This is 8.
8.
It's a great introduction into the world, if you like, because it is a completely different sector that, I mean, even we've just skimmed the top of it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We've been speaking for an hour and we've barely touched the sides.
So basic, we did so basic descriptions and explanations. I tried to do it as simple as possible. Well, all of us tried to do it.
Yeah.
So
But please, if anyone listening wants to ask any of us any questions, please do comment below or get in touch with our Twitters that will be in the description. As we did leave this one, we were just sort of getting on to where Pixel Players fit into the kind of picture of things, I guess. The timeline of like I was saying, with 2020, 2021, 2022. And we'll pick that up in the next episode, explaining a lot more about the project, and I guess where we started wanting to go with it, and where we want to go with it now. So, thanks for listening. I think the next episode, though, will probably be based on football, I should think. Got a weekend of
the two.
Yeah. I mean, crazy, isn't it? So much football.
World Cup.
Cracking games this weekend as well.
It doesn't feel like World Cup time, isn't it? At least it doesn't feel to me like I sometimes completely forget that there's World Cup. Like now you said it, World Cup. Oh shit! I popped into my mind. Oh shit, the World Cup. Yeah, it's gonna start in a couple of days.
I was explaining my viewpoint though to George the other day. It's like, I think it's because we haven't gone through a prolonged period of no football.
Yeah.
Like, this weekend we got Tottenham Arsenal. I wish. Tottenham Liverpool and Chelsea Arsenal.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what I'm looking forward to at the moment. It's not like, I've got to wait 2 more weeks.
Yeah, for the
3
World
more
Cup.
weeks until World Cup.
Yeah.
Because then I would be excited.
Yeah. And you're seeing all these players get injured now as well. Ben Chilwell out, Timo Werner out, Paul Pogba's been
Give it a couple of games. Give it a couple of games into the World Cup, and I think it'll ramp up.
What I saw earlier that made me almost vomit was an advert for a unnamed alcoholic beverage company, where people were sat around a Christmas dinner table, with the roast turkey and all the food, all the trimmings, bottles of beer, Christmas music being played in the background with the decorations, the Christmas tree and whatever, and then football on the TV.
The World Cup final. World Cup final on TV.
It's the most strangest of fusions I've ever seen. Christmas and a World Cup.
Yeah, doesn't sound good. Doesn't sit well.
But anyway, we'll probably leave it there. So please like, please comment, please subscribe. We'll be back again the next episode with probably football chat. Hopefully some positive news from me and Sam and Sento and our teams, Valencia, Chelsea and Spurs. As we said, get in touch with us on Twitter. Description's all below. Send a comment down below. Thanks for listening.
Cheers, boys.
Bye-bye.
Buy the dip, short the VIX, fuck Bitcoin.